All right, so we're diving into Beautiful World, Where Are You?
Okay.
And for this deep dive, we're going right to the source with excerpts from the novel itself.
Sounds good.
You know, I've been thinking about the title, Beautiful World, Where Are You?
Yeah.
It feels almost like a challenge, doesn't it? It's
Mm-hmm.
like Rooney is daring us to find beauty amidst all the chaos of modern life.
Yeah, it's a question that kind of echoes throughout the novel.
Uh-huh.
It weaves its way through all the characters' relationships and their anxieties,
Right.
and they're searching for meaning in a world facing some pretty bleak realities.
Yeah, and she introduces us to those big questions right from the start with Alice.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she's a successful novelist, but she's grappling with the aftermath of a nervous breakdown.
Right.
And her first encounter with Felix in that hotel bar,
Oh, yeah.
it's so wonderfully awkward.
It
I
is.
found myself cringing and laughing at the same time.
That awkwardness is so quintessentially Rooney.
It is.
She captures those small, almost unbearable moments of human interaction.
It's such precision.
Uh-huh.
But what's interesting about their initial conversation is how it reveals those cracks beneath the surface.
Yeah.
You know, Alice, despite her success, she's deeply vulnerable.
Right.
While Felix, he projects a certain bluntness that masks his own grief and uncertainty.
Yeah, and their differences become even more apparent when we see how they approach intimacy.
Right.
I'm thinking about that scene where Felix stumbles upon Alice's rather extensive porn search history
Oh, wow.
on his phone.
Oh, wow.
Talk about a mortifying situation.
Yeah.
But it's more than just an awkward moment.
Right.
It forces them to confront their past experiences
Mhm.
and expectations around sex.
What struck me about that scene is how Felix, despite his initial shock,
Yeah.
he uses it as an opportunity to open up about his own past sexual behavior.
Right.
He confesses to some pretty wild things.
He does.
Things that Alice, in her more reserved way,
Uh-huh.
seems to judge.
A little bit, yeah.
But there's this underlying sense that she's also drawn to his honesty.
His willingness to be vulnerable.
It feels like a turning point in their relationship, doesn't it?
It does.
Almost like they're daring each other to be more open, more honest about their desires.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if Rooney is suggesting that true intimacy requires this kind of radical honesty,
Uh-huh.
even if it's uncomfortable or messy.
Right.
And it's interesting to contrast their dynamic with Eileen and Simon's relationship.
Because on the surface, Eileen and Simon seem like a more conventional couple.
Right?
They've known each other since childhood. There's a shared history. But underneath it all,
Mm-hmm.
there's a similar kind of tension, a push and pull between desire and uncertainty.
Eileen's confession of fantasizing about Alice while being intimate with Simon,
Oh, yeah.
that is such a charged moment.
Yes.
It throws into question the boundaries of their relationship. It blurs the lines between friendship and romantic love.
And then Simon admits to thinking about Eileen during sex with his wife.
Oh, wow.
Talk about complicated.
It raises questions about the nature of desire, doesn't it? Is
Yeah.
it possible to be truly devoted to one person while still harboring fantasies about another?
Right.
And how much honesty is actually possible or even desirable in a long-term relationship?
And then there are those phone calls where Eileen asks Simon to boss her around.
Oh, yeah.
Those scenes always left me feeling a bit uneasy.
Really?
I was witnessing something intensely private
Yeah.
and maybe a little bit unhealthy.
There's definitely a power dynamic at play.
Right.
With Eileen seeking control in a way that feels both erotic and almost self-destructive.
Right.
And Simon, perhaps out of a sense of duty or maybe even a desire to please,
Mm-hmm.
goes along with it.
It's as if both couples are struggling to find a balance
Yeah.
between their individual needs and the complexities of intimacy.
Right.
But then Rooney throws another layer into the mix with the theme of faith.
Okay.
Simon's rediscovery of Catholicism adds a whole other dimension to his character.
It does.
And it definitely complicates his relationship with Eileen.
The scene where they visit Mass together is so telling.
Yes.
Eileen is clearly fascinated by Simon's sincerity, his ability to believe in something she can't quite grasp.
Right.
It's almost as if she envies his faith, his sense of certainty in a world that feels increasingly uncertain.
And it's a stark contrast to Alice, who seems to have lost faith in everything, including herself.
Yeah.
I found myself wondering if Rooney is suggesting that faith in whatever form it takes can offer a kind of anchor in a world that feels like it's spinning out of control.
It's a question that resonates throughout the novel,
Yeah.
and it's one that each character grapples with in their own way. But for me, the most intriguing aspect of the novel is how Rooney weaves these personal struggles with faith intimacy and identity
Right.
into a larger conversation about beauty and meaning in the modern world.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's like she's asking, can we still experience beauty
Right.
and find meaning when the world feels like it's falling apart?
Yeah. Can personal happiness coexist with this sense of impending doom?
That's what makes the book so thought-provoking.
Yeah.
It's not just about romantic relationships or individual struggles.
Right.
It's about how we make sense of our lives against this backdrop of, climate crisis, political turmoil.
Right.
And a general feeling that things are going downhill fast.
And it's interesting how Rooney connects these larger anxieties to very specific moments in the characters' lives.
Yeah.
Like, think about Alice's breakdown in the convenience store.
Oh, yeah.
It's not just a random panic attack.
Right.
It's this sudden, overwhelming awareness of the sheer excess of it all.
Yeah.
The waste, the inequality.
That scene really stuck with me.
Yeah.
It's like she's suddenly seeing the world through a different lens. And what she sees is deeply unsettling.
It makes you question your own complicity in this system, doesn't it?
It does.
Like, how much of our own comfort and happiness is built on the suffering of others? And how do we reconcile that knowledge with our desire to live meaningful, fulfilling lives?
It's a heavy question.
It is.
And I don't think Rooney offers any easy answers.
No.
But she does suggest that beauty in its various forms might offer a kind of resistance.
Okay.
A way to hold on to hope even when things feel bleak.
I love how she contrasts these grand philosophical ideas with the messy realities of the characters' lives.
Right.
They're not just intellectualizing about broody. They're experiencing it or failing to experience it in their everyday interactions, their relationships, their struggles.
It's like that moment when Alice feels this intense connection to Eileen and Simon just for the way the light falls in a taxi.
Oh, yeah.
Such a small, fleeting moment.
It is.
But it speaks volumes about the power of human connection, the way beauty can sneak up on you in the most unexpected places.
And it's not just about visual beauty, is it?
Right.
It's about those moments of grace, those glimpses of something transcendent that can lift us out of the mundane and remind us that there's still something worth fighting for.
Which brings us to that fascinating discussion about aesthetic experience.
Okay.
And whether it even matters in the grand scheme of things.
Right.
Eileen questions why we should care about the beauty of kind of blue versus the beauty of a Chanel handbag.
Interesting.
It's a provocative question.
It is.
And I found myself wondering where I stand on that debate.
She's challenging the traditional hierarchy of art and beauty, isn't she? Like, who gets to decide what's valuable, what's worth our attention?
Right.
And in a world where everything is commodified, even beauty, how do we determine what's authentic and what's just marketing?
But I think Rooney is also suggesting that beauty, even in its most commercialized form, can still bring pleasure, can still offer a kind of escape from the harsh realities of the world.
Remember Eileen's reflections on the wedding?
Yeah.
She talks about how beauty brings joy regardless of its purpose or meaning. And it reminded me of something Alice says earlier in the novel.
Okay.
That even if the world is ending, there's still beauty to be found in the everyday.
It's almost like a radical act of defiance, choosing to see the beauty, to embrace the pleasure, even when everything around you seems to be falling apart.
And it ties back to that idea of hope, doesn't it?
It does.
The idea that even in the darkest of times, there's something worth holding on to, something worth fighting for.
But it's not always easy.
It's not.
I mean, the characters in the novel,
Yeah.
they're constantly battling their own demons, their own self-destructive tendencies.
Right.
They make mistakes, they hurt each other, they sabotage their own happiness.
It's their flaws that make them so relatable, though, right?
Yeah.
They're not these idealized versions of ourselves.
Right.
They're messy, complicated, and all too human. And I think that's one of Rooney's greatest strengths as a writer.
Yeah.
Her ability to capture the complexities of human nature without judgment.
It's like she's holding up a mirror to our own anxieties.
Yeah.
Our own struggles to find meaning and connection in a world that often feels chaotic and unpredictable.
And it's not just about the big existential questions, is it? It's about the everyday anxieties, the insecurities, the awkward moments that make up the fabric of our lives.
Like Eileen's constant self-doubt.
Yeah.
Her fear of allowing herself to be truly happy.
Or Simon's struggle to communicate his needs, his fear of vulnerability.
Even Alice, who seems so confident and successful on the surface, is grappling with her own demons, her fear of intimacy, her deep-seated pessimism about the state of the world.
And yet they keep trying.
They do.
They keep reaching out to each other. They keep searching for something more.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's what makes the novel ultimately hopeful, even if it doesn't offer any easy answers.
Right.
It's that relentless search for connection, for meaning, for beauty that keeps them going even when things feel bleak.
It's interesting how Rooney seems to present us with these two contrasting perspectives on the world.
Yeah.
You have Alice with her sharp intellect and her, deep-seated pessimism. She sees the world as this cyclical system,
Yeah.
destined to repeat its mistakes and ultimately collapse.
Right.
And then you have Simon with his quiet faith, this belief in something bigger than himself, something that transcends the material world and offers a sense of hope.
It's almost like they represent two different ways of being in the world.
Right.
Two different approaches to grappling with the big questions of life and meaning.
Yeah, and neither one is presented as being right or wrong.
Right.
They both have their strengths and weaknesses.
Exactly.
Their moments of clarity and their moments of doubt.
I think that's what makes the novel so compelling.
Yeah.
It's not about providing easy answers
Right.
or telling us how to live our lives.
Right.
It's about presenting these complex characters with their flaws and contradictions and allowing us to draw our own conclusions.
It's about making us think.
It is.
Making us question our own assumptions about the world and our place in it.
Exactly. And I think that's where Rooney's brilliance as a writer truly shines.
Yeah.
She doesn't shy away from difficult questions.
Yeah.
She doesn't try to sugarcoat the realities of the world we live in.
Right.
But she also doesn't leave us completely without hope. There are moments of connection, moments of grace that pierce through the darkness and remind us that even in a world that often feels broken, there's still something worth fighting for.
I keep thinking about that passage where Alice talks about feeling Simon and Eileen's presence.
Oh, yeah.
Even though they're miles apart.
Right.
She says, as long as you both live, the world will be beautiful to me.
It's such a simple statement.
It is.
But it speaks volumes about the enduring power of human connection.
Right.
The way love and friendship can transform our experience of the world.
It's a reminder that even in a world that's increasingly fragmented and isolating, we're not alone.
We're not.
There are people out there who care about us, who see us, who make life worth living.
Yeah.
And that connection, that sense of belonging, can be a powerful antidote to the despair and loneliness that often permeate modern life.
It's like Rooney is suggesting that perhaps the beautiful world we're searching for isn't a place or a time, but rather a state of being, a way of relating to ourselves and to the people around us.
Maybe it's about finding those moments of connection, those flashes of beauty amidst the chaos and uncertainty of everyday life.
And maybe it's also about recognizing that beauty doesn't always have to be grand or extraordinary.
Right.
Sometimes it's found in the simplest things. The way the light falls on a tree, the sound of laughter, the warmth of a human touch.
It makes me think about that scene at the end of the novel where Eileen breaks down crying on Simon's lap.
Oh, yeah.
She's feeling lost and overwhelmed, unsure of what the future holds.
Right.
And Simon, in his quiet, understated way, simply holds her, offering comfort and support without trying to fix anything.
It's a poignant image that speaks to the limitations of human connection.
He does.
We can't always solve each other's problems or provide easy answers.
Right.
But sometimes simply being there for someone, offering a listening ear and a shoulder to cry on, is enough.
And then we have Simon alone in his room, seemingly deep in prayer.
Yeah.
It's such a quiet, ambiguous ending.
It is.
We're left wondering what's next for these characters. What choices they'll make, what paths they'll forge in this beautiful world they're searching for.
And I think that's part of what makes Rooney such a masterful writer.
Yeah.
She doesn't tie everything up in a neat little bow.
No.
She leaves us with questions,
Right.
with possibilities, with a sense that the journey is ongoing, that life is a process of constant becoming.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Beautiful World, where are you?
Oh, okay.
We want to leave you with a final thought. Do you think there's still hope for beauty and connection in a world on the brink of collapse? Or are we destined to repeat the mistakes of the past?
It's a question that resonates deeply with Rooney's novel and with the anxieties of our time. And I think ultimately the answer lies within each of us. It's about choosing to see the beauty, to nurture the connections, to hold on to hope, even when the world feels like it's falling apart.
It's about finding that beautiful world, not out there somewhere, but within ourselves, and in the relationships that give our lives meaning.
That's a good point.
Thanks for joining us on this journey.
It's been fun.
We hope it sparked some new thoughts and maybe even inspired you to find a little more beauty in your own world.
Yeah, me too.